This is based on A2 AQA Business Studies, Unit 10 and Organisational Culture. So first of all, when we're looking at organisational culture, we have to consider the values of the business, the attitudes of the subordinates, the management, everybody involved within the business. What are the beliefs and the customs of the business? And the important questions are, when we're looking at organisational culture, is who are we, what do we do, and what should we stand for? And that is what organisational culture is all about. One important factor about organisational culture is that it should be communicated, not just to the employees, but to all stakeholders involved within the business. And therefore, if we think about Ford, they have a very specific organisational culture, which is actually called One Ford. So it's one team, one plan, one goal. And this is what it all relates to. So again, in terms of their one team, people working together as a lean global enterprise for automotive leadership, as measured by customers, employees, dealers, investors, suppliers, union council, and community satisfaction. So in terms of that, and in terms of being lean, you can tell that they do care about efficiency, they do care about reducing waste, they do care about collaboration. The one plan, so aggressively restructured to operate profitability at the current demand and change in model mix, to accelerate development of new products, to finance our plan and improve our balance sheets, and work together effectively as one team. So again, profitability is key to the company, and their culture relates to trying to be as profitable as possible, but in the right way. And then that contributes towards the goal as well. Now, in terms of their behaviours, remember, attitude and behaviour, it also relates to organisational culture. They've got, again, a saying in terms of Ford, being foster functional and technical excellence, own working together, role model Ford values and delivering results. Now, if you think about role models for Ford values, what they believe is that because everybody who works for Ford represents Ford, so everything they carry out within the workplace or even outside the workplace should be as respectable as possible, because they should always be thinking about, for example, customer service. In terms of, as it's saying, the one team, collaboration is absolutely crucial. So if you were to consider, for example, Hofstede's cultural dimensions, in terms of collectivism would be absolutely crucial within this type of culture. They have an innovative, again, culture about them in terms of fostering for functional and technical excellence. So in terms of thinking about how they can demonstrate and build functional technical excellence, having a passion for the business and their customers, and always thinking about how they can continuously improve. That whole philosophy of innovation and continuous improvement is part of that culture. If we think about other firms, if we think about Google, for example, Google have a culture in terms of productivity. Everything that they do is to try and improve productivity as much as possible. So, for example, if you think about Blake Mountain and the grid, you can consider that they've got a massive concern for people, because they believe that if they treat their employees well, and they make sure that they are comfortable within the Google environment, then they will be as productive as possible. So if you've seen the offices in many of the Google headquarters, they've all been set out intentionally to try and make it so the employees, the subordinates, are as comfortable as possible, are as motivated as possible, so they can be as productive as possible. Another tech firm that tries their hardest to create a strong organisational culture is Apple. Now, in terms of instead of describing this organisational culture, I'm going to just play a video which highlights the key points about their culture.
Apple is always about pushing the envelope, about doing the best thing possible. And that's different from any company industry. A lot of companies, in terms of making it the highest quality or the most elegant, they will stop at some point because it's too hard. And Apple will never give up because it's too hard or it's impossible.
There's no company in the world where there is such a a reverence for expertise.
You don't come to Apple unless you're really good at what you do. The reason you're here, the reason you were hired, is because you're at the top of your field, or you have the potential to be at the top of your field.
There's a belief in the power of small teams to do really great things. That if you get the right people in the room with this notion of let's just do something really great, then great things can happen.
Thinking outside the box, it's funny, we don't even really think about the box. When we go out to do something, we don't start by saying what is everyone else doing, and therefore what are the best practices and what should we do. I think we look to say what's the best it possibly can be.
We never.
So again, in terms of Apple, they have a very innovative culture, but they also have a collaborative culture. They work together on a lot of projects, and they have I'd say if you think about Handy's cultural theory, you're looking at it in terms of a task culture. So in terms of this task culture, again, they adopt a matrix structure for many of their projects, and they believe in collaboration. And in terms of they can't do it alone, they need the help from their team. They need to work together to try and get the best results. Also, they have a very resilient culture in terms of they'll always try and get better and better, and they'll never just settle. And in terms of innovation as well, as I've said before, I thought it was interesting in terms of what he said about in terms of thinking outside the box. And actually, there is no box. So in terms of there should never be any obstacles, or there should always be trying to aim and achieve more, and there should never be any targets. Now, in terms of organisational culture, you can have a strong organisational culture or a weak culture. Now, the difference being the strong culture is one that's really embraced, it's really adopted by the stakeholders and the workforce especially. It's the ones that they've really bought into the beliefs of the organisational culture, and they want to continue with those beliefs, and they want to try their hardest for those values that are involved within this corporate culture. In terms of, again, a weak organisational culture, I suppose it's probably one that is not really being communicated. People, maybe employees, are not actually aware what the culture is, or they don't believe in it. And if you don't believe in the culture, then how are you going to really work towards that? Now, obviously, organisational culture is massively important. It's really important because it's the values of the company. It's everything the company stands for, which should influence the strategies that they undertake. Now, one of the reasons why Hofstede carried out his research in terms of Hofstede's cultural dimensions is because they were starting to realise that in different countries, quite a lot of the management within those countries were adopting the country's culture rather than the organisational culture, and he wanted to carry out and do further research in that. Now, for a company to really drive forward, nationally or globally, then they all should be adopting this corporate culture and making sure that everybody, doesn't matter what functional area you're working in, doesn't matter what country you're working in, but you buy into the beliefs of the firm. In the last couple of years, Amazon have been in the news about their corporate culture, and it's been quite controversial. So the New York Times did a cover of it, and they found it to be quite a ruthless culture. Some people strived under the culture. As it says here, it would certainly be much easier and socially cohesive to just compromise and not debate, but that may lead us to the wrong decisions. So that kind of really sums up what Amazon's culture is all about. What I'm going to do anyway is I'm going to quickly show you a news broadcast about this story.
If you memorize 14 leadership principles, you are given an award. That award reads, "I'm peculiar," and it augurs a good future at corporate headquarters at Amazon. A New York Times piece over the weekend looked at the work environment at Amazon. I'm going to go out on an editorial limb, and I'm going to say that I find it terrifying. Paul Sweeney is with us. He runs a tight ship at Bloomberg Intelligence. Paul, did we learn anything new from this article about the way Amazon is run and the way Silicon Valley works, although I know it's not a Valley company?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's an amazing article, and it paints a picture of an extraordinarily demanding workplace, which what I found most interesting was almost the institutional level of high turnover. And in the technology world, you hear from every technology company you talk to, one of the biggest challenges they have is finding qualified engineers, qualified technical workers. And once you get them, you want to retain them. And so it's very unusual to see a company like Amazon, which has really institutionalized the high level of turnover as part of their kind of corporate culture.
How is this related to what happens farther down in Silicon Valley? Is this an extraordinary tech company, or is this basically what the environment is like out west?
Well, I think this is a very extraordinary, exceptional company. I mean, it's obviously $250 billion market cap. The stock is just at an all-time high. And from an investor standpoint, whatever these folks at Amazon are doing is working. But clearly, it's a different culture than what I think you see in a lot of technology companies, where they really try to be supportive and create an environment where they can attract, but also maybe even more importantly, retain the best talent.
What did you see in the article? I mean, what's great about Paul Sweeney and frankly all at Bloomberg Intelligence is you look at 40 Amazons. What was distinctive within the article?
What I think was distinctive, again, was the fact that I think it's really part of their culture to not only attract people, which is very common, the highest performers, very common for Silicon Valley, but also to be prepared to manage a large portion of those people out, to expect that a lot of those employees are going to leave, so that you will be left with, a very, very small percentage
like
of your
the U.S.
of your
military?
hires.
Is it a military equivalent, up or out?
Up or out, yeah. It seems that way. And they had lots of, I think, interesting anecdotes from recruiters around the Seattle marketplace. They're saying, gee, we love to hire Amazonians.
Well, I was going to ask, is he getting away with it because they're in Seattle and not Silicon Valley? There's an interview with Jeff Bezos in the Telegraph today in which he says, almost all of the people I work with on a daily basis are paid volunteers. They can do whatever they want. They could be sipping margaritas on a beach. He's being disingenuous, isn't he?
Right, yeah. I think it's a little bit, again, it's a very unique culture there. And I don't think you find that in very many other companies, certainly of that size. But again, if you step back from the stock and say, boy, whatever these folks are doing is working.
So again, in terms of Amazon, they're very, very different to the ones that we've just seen in terms of Apple and what I said about Google. They've got a very, very ruthless culture, and it's pretty much you have to be tough to work for Amazon. If you're not tough enough, then you shouldn't be working there. So again, these are some of the quotes from workers that are either still at Amazon or had to leave. So I was so addicted to wanting to be successful there. For those of us who went to work there, it was like a drug that we could get self-worth from. I would see people practically combust. I remember reading in this New York article about people saying it was quite usual for people, grown men, to be leaving a meeting pretty much with their head in their hands, trying to hold back the tears. And pretty much what they were trying to do is they were trying to get you to really, really criticise any idea or think of any issues of ideas, but sometimes in quite a brutal way. But the reason for that is to really try and push the worker to perfect the idea. But again, there's no reward for not speaking up. Good backbone is a compliment. It's very seductive quality about the organisation because people want to contribute. You can feel comfortable that if there's a flaw in your plans, someone will tell you to your face. So again, it was just trying to do the best and be the best. And if you weren't strong enough for that, and therefore you were forced out pretty much. They only wanted the toughest culture. And again, you could say that they didn't have that much of a concern for the person, but a concern for the task.